Good morning. So what we're going to focus on today are scenic renderings and collaging. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be walking through some of the steps of your first rendering assignment, your bedroom collage. And a lot of the tools and functions that are used in this bedroom collage are what I use as a scenic designer when creating my renderings. What you see here is on Moodle. This is a sample of the bedroom collage. This is the one that I created in graduate school. This is essentially what you're going to be doing. You're going to be finding a blank bedroom, and then you're going to be editing and modifying and adding things so that it looks like, a more well put together bedroom. This is not my current bedroom. I think it is beautiful. I would not want to live in this bedroom. It's a little too gaudy, but I had fun with it. And that's one of the things I want you to do with this assignment is I want you to have fun with it. Okay. So starting with opening files, what you can do is you go to File, Open. You can open multiple files at once. I have all the files that I want already in a folder. You can go online and search for images. I just went to Google and searched empty bedroom. I searched different furniture that I wanted to play with. I know I wanted a wood flooring, and so I looked up a wood texture. We will go, chandelier, bed, the bookcase, side table, empty bedroom, the wood, and the rug, and sofa table. So select the files that you want, and we'll do blue dance. Hit open. It'll take a second, but Photopea will open all of the files. Okay, and you can just click through them. Some of them look smaller than others. That's because their resolution is a little bit lower. By holding down the Alt button and using your scroll wheel on your mouse, if you have one, you can zoom in or in and out, or you can use the zoom button in the tools panel on the left. Okay. Let's see. In my empty bedroom, it's real basic. It's simple. So one of the first things I want to show you is removing things that you don't want. Like, I like this bedroom. However, on these doors, I don't like these giant black locks. Okay, I find them distracting. I don't like them. I can cover them up, but there's also a way that I can remove them. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out because I don't want. So when you zoom in, all those little squares, those are the individual pixels of the image. Okay. So first thing I want to show you how to remove this is with selection tools and just moving things around. So I'm going to use the rectangle select tool. I'm going to click on it or hit M. I'm going to highlight, or not highlight, but I'm going to select over the door frame. Okay, and I have the background layer selected. I'm going to hit V to go back to the move tool. This selection that I've made, I'm going to hold down the Alt button first, click, and then drag. What this does is it creates a copy of the selection I've made. If I hold down the Shift button, then it allows me to move in a perfect up and down or left and right direction. So I'm going to pull it down to cover up the black lock. I'm going to deselect, and how you can deselect is just by using the rectangle select tool. Just click anywhere and it'll remove the rectangle we created, and you see that it instantly covered up part of the lock. Now if I go back to the move tool and I try to move that selection again, it's not going to move it. Okay, what we've done is we've moved a section of the image. It's like we've duplicated part of the image and we've just moved it to another place. We haven't created another layer. We've just moved something around. okay? I can do the same thing. Over here, I'm gonna highlight just big old white spot. Click and drag, hold down Alt, click and drag to cover up the black, and it's gone. Now, if you look closely, you can see that there's a little issue right here and right here. You can kind of see where I moved the rectangle to. I mean, if I zoom out and do this, you're gonna see it a little bit, but unless you're staring right at it, it's not something that's immediately distracting. So that's one way of removing that. Another way of doing it is using the healing brush. Over here on the left, where you have the Band-Aid, that's your healing brush tool. Click and hold and click the healing. Make sure you have healing brush tool, not spot healing brush. You're gonna get your cursor. Hold down the Alt button to pick from a sample. I'm gonna pick from somewhere on the door frame. Because you see now that I have my cursor, you see that there's like a dark vertical line. That's the door frame. I'm going to move it. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to line my cursor up on top of the black lock, but also line it up with the pattern in the door frame. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. But I'm not going to go too far because you see the little crosshair that's slightly above the cursor. If I get too close to the inside part of the door, it's going to appear where my cursor is. So I'm going to let go. You see this dark spot has shown up. We can go ahead and fix that. We're going to use the healing tool again, but I'm going to pull my sample from the middle of the door, okay? Because it's a flat white, and that's what I want to use to cover this up. So I'm going to click. I'm going to cover this up. Release. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I just did with the door frame. Line it up as best I can. See? And you can see, use the move tool. You can see right here, I got too close to this inset part, and so it kind of showed up. I'm going to go back to the healing tool. You can click. The hotkey is J, and it's the same hotkey for Photoshop. Pull my sample. There we go. I've removed the locks. I've removed the locks on both sides. Both sides have slight issues with some discoloration in the door frame. You can easily cover that up if you want. If I jump back to the sample and I zoom in on the bedroom I created, I actually covered that up with the chiffon that I put in front of the doors. Okay. So if you have in the bedroom that you find, if you find something you don't like, there's a couple options there for you to work with. There's also, I'm sure, other ways that you can do it using like the brush tool and selection tools. Like there are a bunch of ways to do the same thing with Photoshop and Photopea. It's all up to you to discover them and what works best for you. Both the healing tool method and the selection tool method, I use both depending on what it is. If it's something that I'm trying to be very detailed, very seamless, very in simplest sense, beautiful, then I'll use the healing tool. If I'm trying to be fast with something, if I'm doing a large flat area, then I'll just use the selection and move tool because it's simple. What we're going to get into next, everything that I'm going to walk through today, I have a class outline and the rubric for your first rendering assignment pulled up, and so I'll be referencing those. One of the things that you need to do after you've found your empty bedroom, you are not allowed to use this photo. If you find this photo on Google, you may not use it. You have to use a completely different empty bedroom, okay? If you use this photo, you will not receive credit. And that's because I'm walking through the steps with you in this Zoom meeting, and I want to challenge you to figure out how to make edits on something that we haven't seen, something that you haven't worked on yet. Okay? So you need to give the walls a new texture or color, okay? So back in my bedroom collage, I made them blue and I added this damask texture to it, okay? So, and I left the ceiling white. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with these columns. These columns I just turned blue. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool because for me that's what's easiest. You can also use the rectangular select. You can use a combination of both. I use rectangular select, I can click and drag. The issue with this is it's a perfect rectangle, and if you look down here at the bottom of my rectangular select, it's covering up some of the trim, and I don't want that, which means that this column is not a perfect rectangle. So I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to use the polygonal lasso select because it still allows me to get the straight lines that I want, but allows me to, you know, kind of fudge some of them, make them a little diagonal if necessary. While using the polygonal lasso select, if you hold down shift, you can get a perfect 90-degree or 45-degree line. I want the perfect 90 degree to go all the way down to the trim. Click once. I'm going to create my second line. Click a second time. I'm going to go up. If you hold down shift, then you can drag your cursor wherever you want and you can actually see where the line is going to end. If you're not holding shift, the line or the selection line is going to be at your cursor. Okay, when I'm doing straight lines, I like doing this because then I can see exactly where the selection line ends. And then I can go to where I started, double click, and there's my selection. Oops. If you accidentally start creating another polygonal line and you don't want to, just hit escape and it'll get you out of it without deselecting anything. Now I've selected one face. I want to select this face as well. So I'm going to hold down shift, start in this corner. I'm going to go up that corner. I'm going to hold down shift, click again, click in the corner, hold shift to go vertically up, and then double click. And you can see that it's added to the entirety of my column. And it seems I've missed a tiny piece right here. So I'll go ahead and I'll quickly add that in. When you're adding to a selection, always make sure you hold down the shift button before you begin to make your selection. If you don't, then it's not going to add. It's just going to create a new selection and remove your previous selection. If you accidentally remove your previous selection, hit Control or Command Z to undo the function, and it will bring you back. See, if I hit Command Z, you can see right here that it removed the selection I just made. If you want to do a redo, you have to, it's Control for PC, Command for Mac, but Control Shift or Command Shift Z to do a step forward. It's the exact same thing with Photoshop. Okay, so I've made my selection. Now I want to recolor it. However, you can do all of this on one layer. Like, it is possible. I prefer, I don't want to hit the back button. For me, I want to make a new layer, okay? I'm just gonna call it column color. The reason I like to make layers and why you should want to make more layers is because then you can edit everything separately without altering your background, okay? When I edited out those locks, I did it directly on the background because I knew I did not want them. I wanted them to go away, and so I'm okay with that being more permanent. When I'm recoloring things, I don't want them to be as permanent. I want to be able to see this collage with and without the colors, okay? So I'm going to adjust this to be I'm just gonna pick a blue. Okay. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool to do a quick fill. Make sure I have the correct layer selected, column color. I'm going to click inside the selection, and it turned it blue. Well, now it just looks like a massive gray chunk, or blue chunk. It doesn't, look like the column, and the column had a little bit of, shadow to it, a bit of dimension. So what I'm going to do is, with this layer still selected, I'm going to select from this drop-down menu up above, okay, the blending options. I'm going to select multiply. Okay. It doesn't look like it did a lot, but it did, because you can see right here how there's a shift. You can see the corner in the wall. Okay. What I've done, what multiply does is it takes your layer and kind of turns it into a transparency. Think of it like looking through a gel for a lighting instrument. When you look through it, you can still see everything on the side, but everything now has this this colorful layer on top of it. And that's basically what multiply does. That's what all blending option does. It creates sort of a filter of the layer you're working with to see the objects behind it. Play with different blending options. See if one works for you better. See, I do overlay, it changes it. Soft light, hard light. Hard light didn't do much. You can do color. All of them are going to be just a little different. We're going to stick with multiply for right now. If I want to, I could drop the opacity down to 50%, hit enter. Oops. Okay. So when you're working with opacity, type in the opacity, hit enter, and then make sure you just click outside of it. And there you go, there's my column. And now what I can do is I can very easily turn this layer on and off, and it doesn't affect the rest of my drawing. Now, we're going to assume this image is perfectly symmetrical. Okay? Even if it's not, what I'm about to do, I'm going to do anyway. With column color selected, I don't have anything in this layer selected. Okay? You don't see the little dotted line. If you want to select everything in a specific layer, hover over the image in the layer over here in the layers panel. You're going to hold down, I think it's Command. Yep. You're going to hold down Command for Mac, Control for PC, click the image, and it will put an outline, a selection outline around everything in the layer. Okay? Now, in the layer, I'm going to hold down the Alt button, click, and drag. And I'm going to hold the Shift button because I want it to move straight. And it's made another selection. Now, with the entire layer isn't selected, just this selection that was copied. I want to mirror it because, if we're looking at a symmetrical room, it's got to be mirrored. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip horizontally. You can see that it's off slightly. I'm not going to hold down Alt, but I'm just going to drag it a little bit. There you go. I'm going to deselect it. I let this little blue line was left. I don't know why, but I don't want it. So I'm going to highlight it and hit delete. And it's gone. Now when I go to turn the layer on and off, it does both columns. Okay. Now, I want you to also consider adding a texture to the wall. You don't have to, but you must recolor or retexture your walls. And when I did this, I used this blue damask, okay? Now, how do I pull a texture or color from one file to another? Well, what you're gonna do is I'm going to hit Command A, which is select all. For PCs, it's Control All. It's the same function for Photoshop. You can also do the command click on the layer picture over here in the layers panel, or you can use any of the selection tools to select whatever specific part of the texture that you want. Okay. Now in Photoshop, you can, using the move tool, you can click and drag the selection just to another file, hover over the open file that you want to move it to, and it will instantly move it to that file. I guess I'll just switch two of my files around. But it'll instantly just drag it to that file. In Photopea, that's not how it works. There we go. Okay. In Photopea, that's not how it works. So you're gonna I hit Command A to select all of it. I'm going to hit Command or Control C. I'm going to copy it, go back to the empty bedroom, and I'm going to paste it. Now, I'm gonna hit Command A. Let's see. No. I'm going to Control click in the layer over here, and it will select everything because this damask texture is actually larger than the bedroom image I have. So I want to scale it down. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Scale. You can also do free transform, which is Alt Control T for PCs, Alt Command T for Macs. I just hit Alt Command T. When you do for free transform, you're going to get these little points in both the middle and the corners. When you hover over them, you're going to see a double arrow. This is how you can scale it. If you want to scale it proportionately, hold down the Shift key. Okay. Otherwise, you can do really weird transformations. Do it there. You can click and drag to move it around. With the transform tool, if you see this little arrow that's pointing in two different directions, that means you can rotate it. Okay? If you hold down Shift, you'll be able to rotate specifically to 15, I think it's 15 degree marks. Okay? Or you cannot hold Shift, you can just rotate it whichever way you want. When you're scaling, be very careful that it's the scale symbol and not the rotate symbol. There are so many times where I've been trying to scale something and I've accidentally rotated it, and it gets frustrating. Okay, I'm gonna scale it down. Actually, no, I'm gonna scale it down further. We'll do it there. And the reason I scaled it down that far is because I'm going to sample it on the very back wall. Okay. You can, to get out of scaling, once you're done, you have the size you want. You can hit this check mark up here, or you can hit Enter, and it will apply the transformation. Okay, the scale. Again, the reason I put that there is because if I go to the sample bedroom, I'm looking at this wall right here. Okay. Go back to the empty bedroom. I'm going to zoom in just so I can see things a little better. Now, what I want to do is I want to select just that back wall. Okay. I'm going to line up my texture to make sure that it's like, okay, that's roughly the placement I want. I'm going to turn the layer off for now. And then I'm going to use the polygonal lasso selection tool to make my selection. These walls aren't perfectly straight, so I can't use Shift. I can use it there. And double click, there's my selection. Okay, I have that section of wall selected. If I turn this layer back on, you can see how it's going to fit. Okay, and we'll just say, yes, that's where I want the texture to sit. I think it's great. Well, how do I get rid of the stuff around it? You're gonna go up to select, hit inverse, or you can hit Shift Control I or Shift Command I if you're on a Mac. Same function for Photoshop. So what selecting inverse is? So I first selected this, okay? I selected this interior portion. By selecting inverse, it selects the outside, and I think I just accidentally selected again. Selected this spot again. Okay, so it selects the inverse, which means that if for the sake of this, it's selecting the outside. Okay, it's selecting everything outside of the selection that I originally made. If I hit delete, it deletes all of it. It deletes the stuff that I don't want. Okay, and then using the rectangle select tool, I'm just going to click anywhere, and it's going to remove that selection. It's going to remove the dotted line. So now here it is. I'm going to rename this layer as Damask Back Wall. Now, say I like this texture, but I'm not a huge fan of this blue. You know, I want it to be more, I want it to match these ones more. So I can go in and I can play with the blending options. Okay, I just change it to multiply. I would suggest if you're using a texture like this, definitely use the multiply blending option, because then it takes the shadows of the original bedroom into consideration. Okay, if I want to lower the opacity, I can. I don't want to because I don't like the way that looks. I'm going to keep it at 100 because I like the punchiness of this damask. But say I not a fan of this color. I like this texture. I want to change it slightly. I'll create a new layer. I'm going to command click the image next to Damask Back Wall to make that selection, so I know that I'm working in just that selection. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool, and then with this new layer selected, I'm just going to click, and it's going to fill it. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the blending options. I'm going to go down to color, and it takes the damask texture but makes it the blue color that I've selected. Okay, that's literally what it does. It takes the layer underneath and applies the color of the layer on top. If you have a texture on top of a texture, it gets really weird. So be careful with that. Okay, but that's one thing you can do, and then you can go and you can adjust the opacity if you want. Okay, turn it on and off. You can see the difference. Okay, I'm going to delete this layer because we don't need it. Okay, so that's adding color and texture to walls. If I were to do the doors or the trim, I would handle it the exact same way. I'd want to use the polygonal lasso select tool to select everything that I can. Okay, select all the trim. What I would suggest for things like this, so for the trim, because for me, I wanted all my trim in this image to be the same color. What I did was I went in and I selected all of the trim in the room. Okay, so the selection looked really weird. I used the paint bucket tool to fill it, and I did it all in one layer. By doing it all in one layer, I can then edit it far faster than not. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that little blip. I had a new desk come in. It was really heavy, and I had to help the guy bring it upstairs. So, back to trim. So selecting all of the trim is going to look weird when you have everything selected. but when you fill it all at once, it's really going to help it, or help you with manipulation in the layer panel and in the image, okay? I'm not going to show you that right now because it's literally the exact same process for selecting these columns, these pillars, or this back selection here. What I want to get into next is changing the floor, okay? So we have this wood texture. It's actually kind of nice. But say I want to recolor it, okay? I would treat it just like I would these columns. You make this selection, some of these polygonal lasso to select. I'm going to click. I'm going to click at each corner. Actually, I'm going to click around the trim. There's some awkward selections, some awkward spots because some of the trim juts out. And then to select the rest of this, I can select outside the image. Double click, and I've selected everything. Now, because I have this area outside the image selected, is it going to, change anything outside my canvas? No, because this is outside the canvas. If I use the paint bucket tool, I'm going to create, oh good Lord. Create a new layer. I'm gonna say I want to make it darker. So I'm gonna go orange, make it a darker brown. I go to use the paint bucket. It only fills in the image. You don't see it outside, okay? Because that's offside, off the page, okay? You can't. Think of it like printing. Okay, if you have something that's like outside the margins or off the page, it's not going to print, okay, because there's nothing for it to print onto. Just like this, there's nothing, it's like this is like infinite invisible space, okay? So then I'm gonna go up to normal. I can select multiply again. You get the texture underneath, you get the wood texture that I originally had, but it has this new color. And then I can adjust the opacity if I want, knock it down. That's a little too far. Let's go 85. Okay, so you can still see the wood texture gets this brown color. And what's cool with this, and now that I'm noticing it, is by doing this, you can see where there was a rug. Whoever took this photo and posted it, there was a rug in this room. It's really funny. Because we'll actually be talking about rugs in a minute. Okay, that's one way to do it. I'm going to delete this layer because what you can also do is add in a new texture. Okay, I'm going to say this is the texture that I want to add. I'm going to hit Command A to select all of it. Edit, transform. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees because this is the direction that I want the wood to go in. I'm going to copy it. And you hit Command C, but I'm going to copy it, go back to this file, and hit Command V. I'm going to Command or Control click on the image in the layer, so it selects everything. Edit, free transform, because I need to scale this down. Okay, and mind you, when I'm zooming in and out, for the majority of these lectures, I will be holding the Alt button and using my scroll wheel because it is faster for me, and it is well, essentially it'll be faster for you guys, so then I'm not having to constantly click on a million buttons. Okay, so I'm going to scale this down to roughly the size of the wood on the floor. Okay, and hit Enter to apply the transform. Okay, now this room is in perspective, so the wood planks are thicker here than they are up here. What I'm going to show you today is how to manipulate this just to throw in a simple wood texture. Okay, and then how to manipulate some of it slightly so you can get this perspective look. Okay, if you don't do it in perspective, that's fine. Okay, because it's not difficult, it just can be a little time consuming. Okay, so I'm going to move that. With this selected, I'm going to hold Alt and click, and drag. I'm gonna line them up. I'm gonna go edit, transform, flip horizontal. And then I'm gonna deselect. This is all still one layer. The reason I did that is because I'm going to select it. Oops. I hit the wrong button. Oh. Control-Alt-T. And then I'm gonna drag it. I'm gonna extend the length of my boards. Wow, this program is just blipping out on me a little bit. There we go, now we can see everything. I don't know why it's zooming in on that so close. Guess it's because I don't have any tools selected. There we go. Okay, so now it's working just fine. Sorry about that. I'm going to drag it all the way off the page. I'm going to hit enter to apply the transformation. I'm going to alt click to drag it up. I'm going to hold shift to make it go perfectly vertical. And then what I'm going to do, command alt T to make it free transform again. And I'm actually going to shrink it down. Okay, not by much, just a little bit. I'm going to do the same, and then I'm going to do the same thing again. If you want to just nudge something, just move it a little bit, like 1 or 2 pixels, you can just use the arrow keys, okay? Because see, it'll just move it slightly. But I want it right on top of it. Command Alt T. I'm going to shrink this down again just a little bit. Now, this is still all one layer if you look up here. So I command click all of it, it'll select all of it. So all of it selected, I want to transform all of it. I'm going to squish this down. And line it up just above the floor. So it's kind of on top of the baseboard, okay? The trim at the bottom of the wall. I'm gonna hit enter to apply the transformation. There's my wood. Well, I want it to actually follow the floor. So like we did with the wall, I'm going to turn this layer off. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso select tool, or I'm gonna hit L. See, I'm gonna zoom in so I can get a better view of all this. And then I'm going to follow the baseboard. I want to get super specific. I can even go around this door. If you're, oh, it deselected it, poop. Oh, for some reason I accidentally had the crop tool selected. That's where you need to be careful if you're using hotkeys. If you're using hotkeys, I do this all the time. I'll accidentally click the wrong one. Or while I'm in the middle of a tool, I'll accidentally click something. So just be careful with that. If I want to get to over here, in Photoshop, if I were to just drag this, oh, it does it here too. It will slowly move the photo, okay? You can also, in the middle of a tool, hold down the space bar, and it'll give you operation of the pan tool, okay, without affecting the tool that you were just using. I'm gonna select the floor. I'm gonna go outside. Use the pan tool. Okay, zoom out so we can see the whole image. Okay, so I've made my floor selection. I'm gonna turn the floor back on, select inverse, and hit delete. And there's my floor. Now, like I did, if you look at the sample, Okay, I did, you know, more wood texture. I did, you know, when we moved and transformed it and made it skinny to make it look like the perspective. I did a lot of moving, and that's just because that's what I wanted to do. This also still reads in perspective. Maybe would add one more and shrink it a little bit, but you can do this. If I add a blending mode to this, what's cool about this layer is the brown wood that I added was dark enough to where when I add multiply, it shows the shadows of the image underneath, but doesn't really show the texture of the original wood floor. Okay, I'll name this wood floor. Okay, so that's how you can recolor or retexture a floor. Okay, now get into some of the fun part. Adding your furniture, adding the decor, really making this bedroom feel like you, okay? With this assignment, I want you to have fun with it. I want you to show evidence of concept and cohesion with this bedroom design, okay? You look at this, you look at the bedroom I created, you look at the furniture, the rug, the chandelier, the walls, everything feels like it fits together well. It isn't just like a random cacophony of miscellaneous furniture. If there's a way that you can pull miscellaneous furniture together to make it look like a cohesive design, I will take it if you can sell it to me, okay? Because that's what we do in scene design. With scene design, it's like, if you can sell it to me, then I'll buy it. If you can't sell it to me, try again, okay? So let's see, I'm gonna start with my bed. And it's called, I've labeled everything Cinderella because I pulled all of this furniture from a company called Haunt Furniture, H-U-N-T. It's an Australia-based company, and they do a lot of personalized hand carving for furniture. They have, if you want to check them out, they're a great furniture source. Their images look like this, so it's really easy to select the furniture for your projects. I know they have an Alice in Wonderland collection. This is their Cinderella collection. They have an Atlantis collection. They have some really cool stuff. Okay, so I'm going to use the magic wand tool. I'm going to select all of the white in this photo, but I'm going to make sure my tolerance is set to probably 40, so that I make sure I'm selecting as many of the pixels around the image as possible. If I don't, there might be some pixels left out. Now, if you look down here, it has selected, oh, I don't want to see the pixels. It's selected some of the bed because those pixels right there are within the tolerance that I've put, okay? So what I can do is I can choose to Command Z undo it so it doesn't have anything selected, and I can adjust my tolerance and then try selecting again. It's still selected some of it, so then what I can do is I can go in with magnetic lasso, polygonal lasso, or the lasso tool. I'm gonna use polygonal just because it's easier for me. Hold down the Alt button. So Shift is addition, Alt is subtraction. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow the bed, clicking as I go. Again, magnetic lasso or the regular lasso would probably be easier. I'm just using polygonal because it's quick. I'm going to double click and it removes the selection of the bed. Okay, we will actually be selecting the bed in a second. Okay, I'm going to come over here and do the same thing just because it selected a little bit of that as well. And I just want to be a little anal retentive right now. I'm going to go back to the magic wand tool. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click these white areas that you see in the bed. Okay, because I don't want those. Now that I've selected all the white areas, the areas that aren't the bed, I'm going to go Select, Inverse. If you want to double check and make sure that it's selected the bed, make sure you have your Move tool selected right here, or hit V. You can click and you can see, okay, great, I have the bed selected. I'm going to hit Command C because I want to copy it. I'm going to go to the bedroom and I'm going to paste it. Now it's a little big, really big. Okay, so I'm gonna scale it. I'm gonna hold down Shift because I want this to be scaled proportionately. I'm gonna kind of guess where the back of the bed's gonna line up. Probably about there. Hit enter, boom, there's my bed. Now, you do that with all of your furniture. Okay, you go ahead, put your furniture in. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. Well, what if I found this rug? I found this beautiful rug that I think would match my bedroom very elegantly. In the sample bedroom, you can see that it looks a little different. It looks like it's in perspective. Okay, how do we do that? How do we, warp this? Well, there's a way you can do it. So I'm gonna go in here, do the same thing that we just did with the bed. I'm gonna select all of the white to make sure that that's the space that I don't want. I'm gonna select the inverse and it'll have just the rug selected. I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna paste it. And what you can also do is now that I've got it in here, I'm seeing, oh, there's like a bit of a white outline on everything. So what I can do is I can go in, I can highlight those white outlines, hit delete, and it will delete them, okay? The reason I'm not using the crop tool is because the crop tool refers to the entire document, not to a layer. And, oops. A little bit more. Okay, there we go. Gonna rename these bed. It's not carpet, it's a rug. Okay. So I'm gonna command click on the image, on the little image in the layers panel for rug to make sure that I have this selected. I'm gonna go edit, transform, perspective, okay? It's going to add the same little handles at the corners and centers of the sides. And what you can do is you can click and you can drag these pieces to change the perspective of your piece. Okay. It seems to be out of our perspective. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Make it a little wider. What I'm doing is I'm looking at these lines in the walls and kind of basing it off of that and just being like, this kind of makes sense. Like when you're scaling, once you feel you're in a good place, go ahead and hit this check mark or hit enter, and it applies the transformation. I can move my rug around and it is in perspective. If you're wanting to do something a little weird, okay, as long as you have the layer selected, if you go edit, transform, warp, warp allows you to do some funny reshaping with an object. Okay, I use this a lot if I'm trying to go around a curve, or like if I have like a piece of fabric on top of a table and I want it to look like it's going down the edge, I will use these control handles to make it look like my object is falling off the edge. It takes a little bit of playing and some getting used to, but you can warp your layers and your objects to look funny or to, do what you want them to do. Okay, so I'm gonna warp, I'm gonna enter just to apply the transformation for now. My rug looks awkwardly 3D. It looks like it's wrapping down a step, which doesn't make sense because there's no step in this bedroom. If I hit Command Z, it undoes it. Undoes, undoes, undoes. That seems like it makes sense. It goes back a step. Okay, so that's how you can warp. You can also do the same thing with edit or image, transform, distort, okay? Distort is great if you want to cover a specific space, but you don't want to really alter the perspective. Like if I say, for example, I have a wall that's not a perfect square. It has 4 corners, but you know, it's not it's just not a perfect square, okay? The vertical and horizontal lines aren't at perfect 90-degree angles. What you can do is, for example, like you could take this damask or this rug, you know, that did have really good horizontal and vertical lines, click distort, and it's like the scale tool. You have control handles at your corners, and that's what you drag from. You can also drag from the center of your verticals and horizontals. But you can click the corner control handles, drag them to the corners of the walls, and what that'll do is it'll line the edges of your object up with the wall. So you go from having this perfectly square object to where it's now, you know, it actually matches the lines in the wall, okay? Okay, moving forward. Okay. Last thing I want to show you for adding is the chandelier, okay? You do need to have a minimum of 1 lighting fixture. Your furniture and your lighting fixtures are two separate things. The rubric, you need a minimum of 4 pieces of furniture and one lighting. So whether it's a sconce, a chandelier, a lamp, something, okay? I used this chandelier. I'm gonna do, so this chandelier took some fancy working with to get it all selected. I had to lower the tolerance because everything in this is very white, okay? I'm just gonna do quick select on stuff. And the reason I'm selecting all of these open white spaces is so that when I copy and paste this into my bedroom file, it makes it look more realistic, okay? We're talking about this bedroom in terms of collaging because one, it's a great way to show different tools and functions of Photopea and Photoshop, but also this is what scenic designers do when they're creating their renderings in Photoshop, okay? We want them to seem, we want them to look as realistic as possible, so we're gonna remove as much as possible that isn't actually there. Okay, let's see, I think got a majority of it selected. So I'm gonna select the inverse, okay? There's gonna be some white spots still here. When I first did this, I was very meticulous and I went in and I made sure everything was as perfect as possible. I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna paste it. I'm going to scale it. Oops. I'm going to try that again because I wasn't holding shift. I want it to scale proportionately. I'm just gonna put it right there, okay? And you notice everything in my room, it's blue, brown, gold. I can go in here if I want and I can change this color really easily. And then the chandelier. It's really smart to rename your layers so you know what you're working with. I've done it where I've just had layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. It gets real annoying real quick, let me tell you. Okay, so I'm gonna command click right here on the chandelier to select all the chandelier. And then I'm using the rectangle select tool. I'm gonna hit Alt. I'm gonna go like this because I don't want the actual chandelier selected. I just want the chain and this top part. I'm going to create a gold color. I'll click the paint bucket tool or press G. I'm gonna fill that in. and then use multiply as a blending option. Because then what that does is it turns the chain and, oops, the chain and the connector gold to match the rest of my bedroom. Okay, if I wanted to, I could go in and do it to all of the silver stuff. If I'm really gonna do that, I would probably just do it in the original chandelier photo and do it this way to all of the silver pieces in here. Okay, it'll make things a lot easier. So doing that before you scale it. And then what you can do is still do it the same way, create a new layer, highlight everything you want, fill it with a paint bucket, and then change the blending option to multiply. And then you're gonna select both layers and merge layers. And when you merge them, the blending option on the top layer will still stay. I'm gonna leave that to layer because we don't need it. But the blending option will still stay. I'm just gonna show you that real quick. Okay, say for example, I'm gonna change this chain again. Okay, I'm gonna use a new tool called Quick Selection. It creates a normal cursor like what we're used to. If you click and you drag and you hover over an object, it will select what you think or what the program thinks you want. Now, what it's done is because I accidentally hovered over onto the white, it's selected a lot, okay? So I don't actually want that. I'm actually gonna use this. I'm gonna use the lasso, polygonal lasso tool again, just because I'm not going for pretty right now. I'm just showing you guys something. There we go. Use the paint bucket tool and make sure I have a new layer created. Change that to multiply. And I have both layers selected. I can merge them. It's one layer, and you notice that the blending mode stayed the same, okay? So now if I want, I can go in and I can select the whole chandelier and it will be gold. Well, at least this section will be gold, okay? Back to the empty bedroom. Okay, so you have a minimum of one lighting fixture, okay? What I want you to do, I'm gonna delete this layer to make things clean. What I want you all to do is to add add shadows that make sense based off of the lighting that you've put in the room, okay? If we go to my sample bedroom, you can see that I have some shadows on the ceiling. I've darkened the walls a little bit. I was fortunate that the texture I used had a light portion, and so this already looks accurate, but you're going to be adding shadows that make your bedroom look more accurate to the lighting that you've added. These circles are here. This is my first attempt with a bedroom collage, so they're actually not accurate. But if you were to have a chandelier like this in a room and you look at the ceiling, you're actually going to see little shadow pins on the ceiling because of the way the light bulbs come to a point at the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to call it shadows. Okay, and so now this is where you look around your apartment or your house for ideas, for help. Grab a flashlight, grab a lamp, shine the light at something to see what it looks like. Okay, how the shadows look, how the light affects the architecture and the furniture. But what you're going to do is you're going to go in and you're going to add the shadows, because right now everything just looks white. Well, if I want to look like it's being lit by this one chandelier right here, there's two ways I can add shadows. I can use the burn tool or the paintbrush tool. If I use the burn tool and I use it on a new layer, it's not going to do anything. Okay? We're going to bump this exposure up to 100. Change the size of the brush to 100 and lower the hardness down. Okay. To use the burn tool, you have to be on a specific layer. Okay. Let's see. Let me do highlights so it's easier to see. I'm on the background layer. It affects it. Okay. If I click on this layer here, shadows, and I go to use it, it's not going to affect anything. In order to use the burn or dodge tool, you have to be on the layer that you want the shadows to appear. Okay. What I like to use is the paintbrush tool. Bump it up to 1. I'm going to use a paintbrush tool. I'm going to set the size to 100. Always make sure your hardness is at 0, unless you're working with something very specific. Okay. I always set my hardness to 0 because a lot of the shadows that I'm putting in are going to be much softer. Okay. Your opacity, this is how you help it look like shadows. I'm going to delete this opacity. I'm going to go from 100%. I'm going to go down to 15%. Okay. You see, I don't have black. I just have this yellow color right now because that's what's selected. Okay. But you can see that I'm adding it. I'm going to bump this down to 10 because that still seemed a bit punchy. If you press D, whatever colors are right here, it's going to change it to black and white. If you press X, you can easily switch between the 2 colors here. The top color is your foreground, bottom color is your background. Okay, so if I hit X, now I'm using white. If I hit X again, now I'm using black. Okay, it appears really light, what I've just drawn, which is good, because when you're working with shadows, it's going to be a series of layers. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to select, I'm going to change this to ceiling shadows. Okay, I'm going to do a quick select of the ceiling. Forgive me if this isn't 100% accurate. Okay, so I selected that, and then I have my brush and then I've pressed B. Okay, and this is both Photoshop and Photopea, Mac and PC. The hotkey is the letter B as in boy. Okay, and I'm gonna go in, and like this one, I've done shadows around the outside. Okay, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. It may not be 100% accurate, but this for sampling, this is what I want to show you. So, a little slower. Begin to create that circle around it, because you know, like it's gonna get lighter as you get closer to the chandelier. Okay. If I go back to the place where I started and I'm still holding down the mouse button, it's not going to make it darker. Okay. I have to release the mouse button and click again. Okay. So I release the mouse button. If I click again, it will add another layer of paint of the brush tool. Okay. And it just does it a little bit. My brush tool is being a little laggy. Having a bunch of, I have a handful of programs open. Having programs open will make, the program lag. Will make Photopea or Photoshop, but mostly Photopea lag just a little bit. So be patient with it. Don't be quickly dragging your cursor all over if it's going too slow. And just be easy with it. Okay. As I'm drawing my shadows, my start point, I'm taking my start point and I'm slowly moving it out in an attempt to make it quote unquote look more realistic. Okay, and what that does is it creates kind of a gradient. Okay, now I could go in and I could just use the gradient tool for this. I could do a radial gradient and have it go from white to black. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be 100% accurate. Okay, you can go ahead and try it and see if it works. But for this room specifically, it might not work because I'm looking for an oval right here because of the perspective, okay? Now, say I don't want this hard, shadowy edge, okay? It's not exactly hard, but you can see that there is a clear edge from where I painted the shadow on, okay? I can go in and I can lower the opacity further and redo it, or using the eraser tool, I'm gonna bump the eraser tool up to a size of 100, make sure the hardness is down to 0, otherwise you're gonna get a very hard eraser line. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna drop the opacity down to 10. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit in this space right here. And then with ceiling shadow still selected, I can go in and I can begin to erase some of it if I want to soften that edge a little bit, okay? It doesn't look like much, and that's because the opacity is at 10. I've now done 2 passes, but if I were to just click here, you can see how it's beginning to lighten up, okay? So it does do, so it is erasing, but it is very gradual. It is very minimal with an opacity of 10, okay? And that's, for me, that's what I want, because I want these shadows to be as realistic as possible. So I don't want to immediately jump into, an opacity at 50, okay? So, if I did that, if I jump to an opacity of 50 and I tried erasing things, you get these, you have the potential of getting these really awkward, even more hard lines, okay? Shadows can be a bit time consuming, but at the same time, they are what help your collage, your rendering to look a bit more realistic. Okay, so there, I've deselected it. My ceiling now has shadows. Okay, you go back to this room. This is what I did. I used the paint tool to do the shadows up here. I used the burn tool to darken the walls over here. Okay, I did it on a damask layer. Okay. Have fun with it. Try and figure things out. Okay. So running through the rubric, you have to find an empty room photo to start with, and you may not use the bedroom that is used in this sample. You need to give the walls a new texture or color. The floor needs to be given a new texture or color. The reason I even said the ceiling doesn't need one is because in most settings, in most rooms, if you're like go buy a new house, or a lot of houses, they keep their ceilings white, and that's because when the light hits it, the light reflects off the white and it lights up the room. Okay. So if you want to recolor the ceiling or retexture it, you're more than welcome to. Just make sure that you are still taking care of the ceiling when you're adding in shadows. You have a minimum of 4 furniture pieces. All right, in this one I've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I have another one that I did for this same project, and I think I ended up adding like 4 more just because I was like, you know what, I want to do a whole bedroom and see what it looks like. But you need a minimum of 4. You need a minimum of 1 lighting fixture. So whether it's a chandelier, wall sconces, table lamp, standing lamp, candelabra, gasolier lamp or chandelier, get creative with your lighting. This is, like I said, we're getting into the portion of this class where a lot of this is, based off of your creativity, your conceptualization. As long as you meet the rubric, I don't want to say I don't care, but whatever your design is, whatever textures or colors you use, doesn't matter as long as you meet the rubric. And at the bottom of the rubric, at the bottom of the problem, it says there is evidence of concept and cohesion in the design of the room. So it doesn't just look like you threw a bunch of stuff in there. Okay, you do want it to look like, okay, you've designed a room, because that's also part of what this is. Getting into scenic renderings, the costume renderings, lighting renderings, is we're not just throwing things in there to throw things in there. It's like there's a design element to this. You also need to have appropriate shading based on your added lighting fixture or fixtures to show depth. Okay, so like I said, adding shadows on the ceiling, on the walls, on the floors. One of the cool things you can do, and I'll show you this before we finish the recording, is an easy way to do furniture shadows. We're going to, what's a good, we'll use this table. I'll do it really quickly. I'm gonna use the magic wand tool. Oh, seems I have missed. This is what happens when you use the magic wand tool and you're using a white, and there's a white background with white furniture, is it decides, oh, your tabletop is white, it's a part of the background. Okay. So I'm gonna select this table. Oh, no, I can't, that's right, I'm not in Photoshop. Copy it, go to the bedroom, I'm going to paste it. Oh, that's not right. There we go. I accidentally I did undo too far and it got rid of my tabletop. Okay. I'm gonna scale this down. I would end up putting it in the middle of my rug. Okay, look at this table. Okay, now, what you're gonna do, if I wanna make a shadow of this table, I'm going to command click the image next to the table so that I have the entire image selected. I'm gonna create a new layer. Label it table shadow. I'm gonna make sure that my foreground color is black. I'm gonna use the paint bucket tool, and on the new layer, I'm going to click to make it black. Now, excuse me. I am going to transform this. So I'm hitting Control or Command Alt T. I'm going to bring it down. And then I'm just going to do a weird shadow. This shadow is not going to be accurate to the lighting fixture I put in here. Oops. Wrong button. I need to be in perspective. This is distort and perspective aren't working the way I want, the way they were earlier. We're just gonna use distort. I'm going to drag these corners this way. Say, for example, my light source was here and it was shining on the table. Take that. And then what I'm gonna do, so I use the distort tool to pull the shadow this way. And then I'm gonna use the warp tool just to make sure that all of the bottoms of my legs of my table are lining up with the legs of my actual table. This is where it takes a little bit of patience working with everything, making sure that everything lines up correctly and looks somewhat accurate. It might not be 100% perfect. You're gonna escape. So we're gonna say this is perfect. I'm gonna drag it around. That seems like it's lined up well. What I can do is lower the opacity. We'll say 50. Take this layer, click and drag it so that it's below. You can kind of see it. There's now a shadow of my table. Shadow's a bit light. We're gonna bump it up a little bit. There we go. It's a more accurate shadow. It's not accurate to the lighting fixture that I have in this room, but if I, if we don't look at the lighting fixture, we just assume that there's like a lamp or something shining on the table right here, that's the shadow it would create. And you can do that with all of your pieces of furniture. If we were actually going to create an accurate shadow using the lighting fixture that I put in this room, I would delete that. I would actually do something very simple. It would actually just be, oops. Boom, there we go. That would be the shadow because it's sitting essentially directly below the chandelier. So you would just have a circular, you would just have the shadow of the tabletop. Okay. So once again, start with an empty room photo. Walls need to be given a new texture or color. Floor needs to be given a new texture or color. You can do it to the ceiling too if you want. You need a minimum of 4 furniture pieces, minimum of 1 lighting fixture. You must have appropriate shading based off the added lighting fixture or fixtures to show depth. You need to have evidence of concept and cohesion in the design of the room. On here, I also have some formatting requirements, okay? Your canvas and image size should be 7.5 by 10, okay? If we go back to the very first video, document setup, we talk about how to set that up, okay? So 7.5 by 10 in landscape orientation. Your resolution is 300 ppi or pixels per square inch. Your image, your collage, your image must fill the entire page, okay? So fill the entire canvas, like what I've got right here, okay? It's very easy to do. Just go ahead, just go in and work with the image you've got. What I suggest you do is when you first open the image, go to image, canvas size, and adjust the width in inches in here, okay? Because that's how you're gonna get the 7.5 out of 10. Do all of your formatting first, get it out of the way, it'll make things easier for you in the long run. And then your file must be saved and submitted as a PDF, okay? So you're gonna go File, Export as PDF. And you're just gonna save it to your computer as a PDF. What you must upload is both a PDF of your bedroom collage and a PDF or image file of the original empty bedroom you selected, okay? Because I want to see how all of you created something new, right? Have fun with this. I hope that all of this was helpful. Let me see, there we go. And just, go wild, go crazy, have fun designing a bedroom.